Welcome to the Life You Love podcast.
We're your hosts, Grace Lemire
and Erin Convertini.
This podcast is for the dreamers and the doers.
For the women who want to create a life they genuinely love waking up to.
We believe that life's short, so let's build one we love. One of our very first episodes on this podcast, back when we had an entirely different name and everything, was how to build an effective budget when everything's expensive AF. And still to this day, that's one of our top performing episodes. You guys just loved it so much. And I think it's relevant now more than ever because costs have risen so much since that episode and budgets are getting tighter and tighter. So in today's episode, we wanted to have an honest big sister chat with you about budgeting, not lecturing you, but just giving you the money advice you might need to hear right now to feel more in control of your finances.
I'm so excited for this episode because we honestly haven't done a money related episode in such a long time. I feel like it's been 3 or 4 months, which is honestly crazy because if you've been here since the beginning, you remember our Girls Talk Money days. And this episode that Grace just mentioned was literally one of our first, I think, 3 episodes. And it has to this day way more views than any of our other podcast episodes, which is crazy. Please do not go back and listen to it.
Yeah, don't.
But I feel like even though we were still like very, very new at podcasting, I feel like we outlined that episode in just like a very clear and concise way to give you guys really actionable kind of like, okay, if you're feeling this, like here's what you can do. And I think that's why people loved it so much. So we tried to take a lot of that and like put that into today's episode in kind of an updated way to be more palatable for 2025 because as you just said, things are still getting very expensive. A lot of people are saying their budgets are just super tight right now, and it's really hard to get ahead when you feel like your money is being eaten up by all of your expenses and everything. So we want to kind of outline that in today's episode and just give you a lot of actionable takeaways that you can take to start making financial progress. But before we get started, I just wanted to kind of like highlight, because we talk a lot in this podcast about the idea of increasing your income to get ahead financially. And that's definitely an avenue that Grace and I have taken in our 20s as sort of like we want to get ahead. We know our expenses are important, but it's also important that you can increase your income so you can make financial progress quicker. And I do feel like a lot of our listeners are kind of like in that boat as well. Like, hey, if I want to make financial progress, let's increase our income. But there are a lot of high earners that also still can't get ahead because they haven't taken the time to manage their expenses and really get their expenses under control. So I feel like that's an important note before we kind of get in today's episode, is just even if you feel like you're in the boat where you're like, no, if I want to get ahead, I want to increase my income, I don't want to worry about my expenses, this is still like a really important conversation for you to take a minute to look at all of your expenses, look at your budget, build a realistic budget so that you can actually use the additional income to get ahead.
Which I think transitions us really well into where we want to start this episode, which is talking about what it actually even means to have an effective budget, because it's like, what does that mean? Like effective. And I think the way that I've always thought about it is having a balanced budget. An effective budget is one that you actually are going to follow, that you actually enjoy, that you actually want to like use, and that you actually feel like is guiding you towards your financial goals, which we're going to break this down quite a bit and into a lot of different sections. But I have always said, I've been very open with the fact that I am not a frugal person and I do not enjoy frugality. I'm not someone who's going to eat rice and beans and cut all of my wants and unnecessary expenses that are just purely fun in the name of being able to save and invest more. I am responsible with all of it, but I'm very balanced. I'm thinking through, okay, what are my needs and what are my wants? How can I give myself a reasonable budget for wants and also still save and invest for my goals in a way that isn't going to burn me out because I'm living so frugally, but in a way that actually makes me be like, oh, I actually enjoy this and I see the purpose in budgeting and I enjoy budgeting and I'm looking forward to it because by budgeting, I get to spend more on the things that I enjoy. So to me, that's what effective looks like. But I think you have to be able to define that for yourself. Like, what does it mean for me to have an effective budget? And again, for me, and I think for you as well in a lot of ways, it means having a balanced budget, something that actually feels good.
Yeah, I definitely think that budgeting at the beginning, I kind of viewed it as like, okay, if I'm on a budget, then I do have to be as frugal as possible and I need to cut all of my expenses. But after doing this consistently for the past probably 5 or 6 years, I've honestly learned that sticking to a budget and paying attention to my expenses, if anything, it did the complete opposite. And it almost gives me the freedom to spend on the things that I actually love, which sounds very cliche. And I feel like if you're listening to this and you've never done it before, you might be like, oh, yeah, everyone says that. But I swear, like, for example, I went shopping on Friday. I went to Old Navy. I've been wanting to go into Old Navy. I've seen online that they have really cute things right now. And I feel like a lot of times I walk into a store and I get very anxious. Oh, I don't really want to spend that amount of money right now. But I walked in on Friday and I was like, no, Erin, like I just looked at my budget the other day and I have $400 left in my shopping budget for this month. I allocated that money specifically because I know I want to buy things for fall. I love this time of year. I love spending money on clothes this time of year and I have $400 left. So like go in there and just enjoy it. Like do it guilt free. And that's so much more fun than walking in there when you haven't checked your credit card balance in the past 30 days. You have no idea how much you're spending. You have no idea if you have any money left for this month. Like it's so much more fun when you've planned for it and you're spending money in a way that aligns. But I think the other thing here that's important to remember is just because it doesn't mean you have to cut everything out. I also think it's important to be honest with yourself about what it truly means to live within your means at this stage of your life. It doesn't have to be a forever thing, but like what is actually within your means right now? Because my financial situation right now and Grace's financial situation right now, like that could look like two completely different things. And maybe it's in one person's budget to have $300 to go to the bars this month, but maybe it's not in your means right now. Like it's really important to get honest with yourself about what that actually means. And it's okay to have things that you want and have things that would be included in your rich life and admit that that might not be a right now thing because it's not in my means at this very moment.
I also want to add too, because I have a history of, I used to have so much like financial anxiety, and I still have some financial anxiety to this day. But I used to be, and I think a lot of women listening to this will probably relate. I used to be like a money hoarder, and I did used to live super frugally, where I've talked with this so many times in the podcast. My entire budget for discretionary fun spending, which I always say it included fun spending, included if I wanted to buy shampoo, conditioner, soap, makeup, anything like that, clothes, dining, anything, was $400 a month. And I stuck to that because I wanted to pay off my student loans, and I went like so ham. And the thing is we talk about budgeting and the purpose of it and how it can help you if you are overspending in certain categories or going over budget, but also it can help you if you are the opposite way, where you are in financial scarcity mode and you're constantly going quote unquote like under budget, or you are not actually enjoying your life because you're so afraid of running out or hitting rock bottom or never having enough. And I found that budgeting, because that was where I was when I started budgeting, I wasn't overspending because I was so afraid of overspending, which is hilarious because I have always been terrified of overspending. So I never really overspent. I just like I was like underspending, and I was saving way too much. And it was great, right? I got to save a lot, and I paid off all my debt and things like that, but I was not enjoying my life at all. So I did that for so long that I burnt myself out. And then when my debt was paid off, I was like, I just want to go ham. And so it just wasn't healthy. But budgeting can give you that perspective to be able to see, okay, or at least for me, when I started to budget, I was like, okay, wait, like, yeah, I want to start saving to buy a car. Or at the time I had student loan debt, I was like, I want to be able to pay my student loan debt off by this point. What do I need to put onto my student loan debt every month to be able to do that? This much. Oh, wow. Okay. I can actually still hit my goal and actually go out to dinner with my friends more often and stop saying no all the time. Or I can afford to buy, a new workout set when I want to. And so then I got to see, okay, I can actually live my life and achieve my goals at the same time. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't set up, like actually take the time to sit there and set up a budget. So it goes both ways, preventing you from overspending and preventing you from underspending to such a degree that you're just living in financial scarcity all the time.
Yeah. And it can also be the case where, because I know when I think the time in my life when I was the most into like being super frugal and saving as much as possible, when I was like budgeting really hard, paying attention to my expenses really hard because I had big financial goals and I wanted to hit them as quickly as possible. It was right when I graduated from college. I was like working my entry level corporate job and I wanted to max out my Roth IRA and save and all of the things. And my student loans were coming up and all of that stuff. And I remember one day I walked into Aldi on a Friday and I was getting groceries for the entire entire week. And I was like, let's see if I can keep it under $20. Well, I mean, this was like 5 years ago. So I feel like grocery prices were a lot different. That would be the three things right
I was
now.
gonna say it's a loaf
But
of bread.
yeah, it's literally a loaf of bread. But I was like, let's just see if I can get it under $20. And it was like fun for me at that stage of my life because I just wanted to see how much I could save. And I was really excited about investing and all of those things. But just knowing your numbers kind of gives you that ability to scale it up or scale it back whenever you want to because you're budgeting on a monthly basis. And when I got to the end of that month, if I was like, wow, I only spent $150 on groceries this month, but it was really tight and I wasn't eating as healthy as I wanted it to be, let me increase that to 200 this month or whatever it may be. So it does give you the ability to save more, save less, spend more, spend less, whatever your goals are and what you need for that like very instance, I think is super important. But we wanted just to give you guys like some idea on how we find balance in our budget and talk a little bit about areas that we like to splurge on and areas that we like to save on. Again, just to give you an idea of if you're budgeting effectively in a way that really aligns with you, you're spending a lot, or not even a lot, but you're spending reasonably on the areas that you love, but you're cutting out the things that don't necessarily add value to your life. So I know personally for me, I think the biggest one is, and this is kind of like a hot take, I see this online so much, but like I splurge on housing. And I know a lot of people say, like, if you want to get ahead financially, don't splurge on housing. And that's fine. That's very, very valid. But I splurge on housing because I'm home virtually all day, every day. I work from home. I have a pet, so I don't want to have roommates. And I just love being home. I am such a homebody. I spend so much time here, so I splurge on it. But to balance that out, I drive a paid off Nissan Sentra, and I don't plan on getting a new car until the wheels literally fall off. Which is a long time from now. So that's just kind of like one avenue. I think the other one is I personally do like to splurge on clothes. I go clothes shopping a decent amount. I like to buy new stuff. It's fun for me. But to balance that, I save a lot on beauty. Like I don't wear a ton of makeup. I'm back to my natural hair color. My nails are natural. I don't get cosmetic procedures. So I think that's another way that like I'm consciously spending on clothes because I like it, but I don't really value spending a lot on the beauty side of my budget.
It's funny because what I have enjoyed spending on has changed so much. And I also think there's like a quote that basically just says something along the lines of like, it just talks about maturing is realizing like it's okay to change your opinion on things. And I think that that's something people should remember and think about as you're listening to this episode too, because as you change and grow as an individual, your financial habits are going to change and grow. And so certain things that used to bring me joy to spend on before don't bring me as much joy anymore, which is funny. So I used to spend a lot more on beauty and, I used to get my hair done more often. I was never someone who had like, extensions or had my hair a certain color that required a lot of maintenance or anything like that. But I did spend more. I used to be blonde in college and I would have to get my hair done every few months. But now I am also back to my natural hair color. And so I just get a gloss every, I don't even know, 6 months. Whenever my hair is starting to look a little crazy, I'll go get one. Although I have been trying an at-home gloss and it's working really well. So I might not have to do that anymore. I developed an allergic reaction to nail products. So there's like, I could pay like a lot more to go to like a non-toxic nail specialist person, but it's just, I don't value it at that much anymore. So I just do them at home. Same thing. I drive a paid off car. It was my mom's old car, so I never had to pay a loan on it. Which some people are like, oh my gosh, that's such a privilege. I'm like, yes, it is. And that's why I take care of it. And that's why I drive it. That's why I'm going to drive the thing into the ground. Like I am never going to get rid of that car unless I have to. But it's funny. I also splurge on housing for the same reason. I work from home and I'm here all the time. But I think in my next apartment, I am going to be aiming to spend less because what I've realized is being here, I am out and about so much. And when I come home, I'm really not like, I do love my space. But for example, like my bedroom, I just have my bed and a nightstand. Like I don't, like there's no wall decor. I don't have a rug. I don't have a dresser. I don't have like, because the only thing I ever do in my bed is sleep. I don't hang out in there. I don't watch TV in my bedroom. I don't do anything else. So I don't really care if my bedroom looks the nicest and having this whole office is really nice, but I've learned like I don't because I'm not here all the time, I don't think it's worth, like I'm out and about so much after work and I work in cafes and stuff sometimes, like it's not worth everything that I pay for it, which is just a lifestyle difference now living in Florida and being in a city versus being in the suburbs before when I was home 24/7. But it's just, I think like you have to figure out, I think it's Ramit Sethi from, he has a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And he says something along the lines of like, spend freely on what you enjoy, but cut mercilessly on things that you don't enjoy. And I try to take that approach because I want to spend on things I enjoy. I want to be able to say, yes, I'm going to donate to that, or yes, I'm going to go to this event with my friends. Yes, I can go to dinner. Yes, I can get coffee. Like if I'm out and about and I want coffee, I'm not going to say no to it. And I don't want to be in the position to do that. But that means that I have to say no to other things. So I don't spend on drinking. I don't drink alcohol. So I don't spend on that. And that means I don't really go out to dinner and like nice dinners that much anymore, just being here. I don't spend on my car. I hardly buy new makeup. I only buy like when I run out of something really. And I'm not someone who buys new clothes all the time. I probably should be actually, because
I know.
I don't have a sense of style. I'm working on it. Okay, guys, I'm working on my sense of style.
We're trying our best.
I know.
We're not style girls over here.
No, we're trying. As I said that out loud, I was like, maybe I should because I don't have a sense of style. But I also like, I'm not cutting on all these things because I want to be frugal. And again, I'm not the rice and beans girl. Like, I'm not going to miss out on fun things with my friends. I would just rather spend on experiences and health and travel and like things like that.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to remember that with the Ramit Sethi quote that you just quoted with like spend mercilessly on or save on
Cut
the things you don't value.
mercilessly.
Cut the things out that you don't like to spend money on. That can go like within categories as well. Like I feel like at this point in my life, I have very specific money rules for myself around what I like to spend on within each category. For example, and obviously like it's loose if I want to, like whatever. But generally speaking, 90% of the time, like my coffee budget, I will spend on coffee at a coffee shop if I'm working or socializing. So I love to go to a coffee shop and work for a couple of hours. That's well worth the $8 latte. I also love to go to a coffee shop and sit there and hang out with my friends for a couple of hours. Well worth the $8 latte. But me just going through the Starbucks drive-through when I have a $500 Breville at my apartment, like absolutely not. I haven't done that in 6 months. So within categories is also important. The other thing on that is like learning to say no to things that you don't really care to go to free up room in your budget for the events that you do want to go to. So for example, if your friends are going out to an expensive dinner one night and you don't really value going because you know you're going to spend $100 and next week you have something else that you and your friends are going to that you would rather spend money on. Don't say yes to the expensive dinner out of FOMO just because all of your friends are going, or trips is the other one. I know my friends love to take trips and I have learned to say no. They're going to like Montana in September. If any of them are listening, they're probably going to laugh at this, but they're all going to Montana. They're all going to Montana in September. And I'm like, okay, well, my boyfriend and I just went to Japan and I would rather spend my money on experiences for like new countries that I've never been to rather than going on like random girls trips at this point in my life. So just learning, like you can say you like to spend money on travel, but it can be very specific for what you want to spend on travel. Or you can say that you like to spend money going out to eat, but it can be very specific for the certain scenarios that you like to spend money going out to eat for.
I think too, it's funny. There was actually a concert recently that a group of my friends were talking about going to, and like everyone was like, yeah, I want to go. And it was an artist that I just really don't know. But I was sitting there and I was like, it's funny because I feel like old me would have been like, yeah, just because I didn't want like the FOMO, like of everyone, like literally everyone in my group is going and I'm not. And I was like, no, like I was like, I don't really like, even if the ticket is $50, no, like I would rather spend the $50 on something else. And that's fine. Like, it's okay. Don't let the peer pressure of it force you into, or sometimes I will go out. I don't really go to bars much because I don't drink. But if I am at a bar, my friends want to go to a bar or something, I will literally just get a water or like a Coke Zero. And because one thing I've learned is I don't really, if for people who also don't drink, which is, I don't understand this, it's criminal, why mocktails are the same cost as like a cocktail. Why is a mocktail $13? It's literally a cup of juice. It's juice. I don't understand. Ugh, it irks me. But so I'm like, I've realized I don't really value having a mocktail at like $13. I'd rather just spend $2 on a Coke Zero. That is just, and it's small, right? It's like a $10 difference, but it adds up if you're going out like often with your friends. I also think too, going back to what I said before, there will be seasons of life where you value certain things more than others. So for example, like you're in a season where you do not value all of these girls' trips as much, but like maybe in 5 years when a bunch of your friends are married and you have kids, that girls trip, it's like, you're going on a girls trip? I don't care where we're going. I'm coming, right? Like, I want a break, right? Like, it might be different because what you value and desire at that moment in time is different. Or, for example, being here in Florida, having just moved, like when I first moved here, I probably was spending more. I would have to look back at my budget, but probably spending more on dining and entertainment because when I was meeting a lot of new friends, like for the first time, we were going and grabbing coffee or going to dinner, or we were doing things like that because we weren't all yet comfortable enough with each other to be like, hey, come have a slumber party at my apartment, or let's just go for a walk. You know what I mean? It was just different, the types of activities that we were doing. Or in this season of life in summer, when it's raining a lot in Florida, I might care more about entertainment because I'm inside more because it's raining all the time. So yeah, I'll go pay to go to the indoor pickleball court or to this, it just depends, but it's okay, but just be honest with yourself about in this season of life, what do I value? What do I want? And make sure that your budget is aligning with that because it's going to be a
Totally.
lot
Yeah.
more fulfilling.
Yeah, being honest with yourself and then looking at your budget and saying, okay, if in this season of life I do value this a lot more, looking at your budget and saying, okay, something has to give. The math is not mathing. We need
Mm-hmm.
to cut something else if I'm going to value something else. And I think this segues really nice into the next two sections of this episode where we want to kind of break down the different aspects of your budget for why you may be overspending or just give you some like actionable tips for how to prevent that. And the two different sections we have here are one, the big stuff. So all of your big kind of like fixed expenses almost. And then second, your discretionary spending, because depending on who you are, one or the other might be more of a problem, or you might not even realize that like one over the other is more of a problem in your budget. So the first one is the big stuff. Again, your big fixed expenses. And they say that if you can be responsible with the big three, then like you're good, which I don't know if I agree with. I think looking back to when I was definitely an overspender, it was not the big three. It was more of like shopping and going to the bars and all of that. But the big three is housing, transportation, and food. So just kind of like being weary of those. And if one of those three is too high compared to your income, then that could be a reason why you don't have money left over at the end of the month to save. Well, I think kind of like obviously talking about housing, looking at your budget, and if your housing expense is taking up 60 or 70% of your budget, that's kind of an obvious one. I feel like people know that. But then transportation is the one that I think kind of like goes under the radar a little bit. And a lot of people find themselves in a situation where they sign on to a car payment that's super high compared to their income. And then you're kind of stuck with it. Like if you still have $25,000 left on your loan, but your car's only worth $22,000, literally can't get rid of your car. If you sell it, you owe $3,000. Or let's say you sell it for $25,000 and then you don't have a car and you kind of like, you're in this trap. So I think that's something to be weary about as well. And we always say, like, for those bigger fixed expenses that are really going to make such an impact on your budget, always before you sign something, like before you sign a lease to an apartment, before you get an expensive car payment, always make a mock budget to see how that would fit into your budget before you sign for it. So I just did this for my house when I was thinking about how much of a mortgage payment I wanted to afford. I literally had my little budget planner pulled up and I was mapping out all of the numbers for what my budget would look like with a certain housing payment to make sure that it was something that I could afford.
Mm-hmm. I think cars, it's interesting because I wouldn't say never. I went through a phase where I was like, if you've been here for a while, you know, I used to always joke and be like, I want to be a Porsche driving MILF, which is so funny because the season of life I am in now, I think with just all the health expenses I've had and money like flowing out the window, I've been trying to make more financial decisions that give me more freedom. And to me, I'm like, I could not care less about driving a Porsche at this point in my life. Yes, it would feel really, sexy to be driving a Porsche, whatever. But it's just not something I care about. But I've never been someone who like actually genuinely values having a bougie car. I drive a 2009 Toyota Camry. there's dents and marks all over the car. Like the headlights are all like fogged up. I have to clean them every few months, like with a whole special kit and whatever. Like I just do not value having a nice car. And I think in your 20s, there maybe will come a time where it's like, okay, I'll buy like a nicer car. But I think prioritizing reliability and longevity, like it is the second you drive it off the lot, it is a depreciating asset. Like the value of it drops the second you drive it off the lot. And like you said, if you're taking a loan out for it and the value of the car is just rapidly going down, it's so easy to end up upside down on that loan where you now owe more than what the car is even worth. So then you're stuck with it. And a lot of people, I see this happen with a lot of people, they buy like cars that are not reliable or they don't do any research beforehand to look at what the repair costs are. Like if you buy, I think it's Lexus, I believe, like the cost of repairing different things on a Lexus is so much more. What is it? Is Lexus the one where it's like the parts are like imported or something?
It is literally any. So like a Lexus is basically like a Toyota with chrome, I'm pretty sure. And like anything that's like that, the repair costs are immediately going to be more expensive. Like if you buy a Lexus over a Toyota, your Lexus is going to cost you every single time you go in for literally anything. It's going to cost you so much money. And I feel like people don't factor that into their budget as well.
They don't factor that in. And then you're thinking about, okay, as you're putting more money into the car because it maybe is less reliable or has higher repair costs, you're funneling so much into the cost of that car. And then you still owe money on the loan of the car. And obviously, if you're listening to this episode and you're like, I'm in this situation, this isn't like trying to shame you or anything. You've learned so much from that situation. And I'm sure the next time you go to buy a car, you'll handle it differently. But if you're someone who is thinking about purchasing a car, at some point, it's something really to think about because, like you said, it is one of those big things in your budget that then you can end up stuck with. And I think food is the other one too.
Well, I was going to say before we move on for the cars, I also think this is an area where it can be like a not right now kind of thing. Like I feel like I'm almost the opposite to you, Grace, where the older I get, the more I'm like, ooh, that car is really nice. Like my boyfriend drives a Toyota 4Runner, but we've also been looking at the Toyota Land Cruisers, which
that's my dream car.
No, that's literally
my dream car.
The 2025 Land Cruiser. There's like a gold one, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's on my vision board. But like, am I gonna buy it? Absolutely not. I'm gonna drive my Nissan for a very long time. She's hopefully gonna last me a very long time. It's okay to say like, no, I do value a nice car, just not right now. It would be irresponsible of me to go buy that Land Cruiser right now. I have so many other financial goals that I should be taking care of first, and then maybe down the line I can get my fun car when I'm in my mid-30s.
I also, too, I've always taken the mindset of I want to extract as much value out of the things that I pay for as possible. I'm not someone who, I don't want that to make me sound like I'm being cheap or whatever, but I mean that car, because I've mentioned this before, and like I just said earlier, this car was my mom's car. She gave it to my brother, then it became mine. It is old, but it only has 170,000 miles on it at this point. The car, and it's a Toyota, which I am a Toyota stan to the day I die. They're the best. So I'm like, why on earth would I get rid of this car when it could possibly last me another 150,000 miles? It's been 17 years and it has 150,000 miles. Like this could last me another 10 years potentially. Like it could last me a very long time. I want to get as much value as possible out of that. And so the Land Cruiser is my dream car. Toyota, if you're ever listening.
Yeah, you can sponsor
a brand partnership would be, yeah, I'm like, please. No, but that is my dream car. Like I would love it because it's Toyota, it's reliable, but it is also a very, very beautiful car. So instead, while I'm extracting all of the value out of my car now, I'm setting aside money in a sinking fund so that when it gets to the point where my car does make its exit, as it inevitably will because it won't last forever, then I can have the money to go buy the Land Cruiser if I want to. But it's a not now, because there was actually a point in time where my car, it needed $2,000 of repairs, and the car's only worth, at the time, was like worth like $4,000. And I was like, is that worth it? But then I was like, it was for kind of like routine maintenance, like things that, I mean, it's 17 years old, you just kind of have to do. And I was like, you know what? I asked my mechanic, because he's very honest. I was like, what should I do? And he's like, I would fix it. He's like, if you fix it, he said, it's routine maintenance for a car of this age. And he was like, the car is going to last you. He said it could last you till 400,000 miles. He was like, because you guys have taken such great care of it. And so I'm like, But I had a moment in that moment where I was like, should I just buy something new? And then I was like, no, because then I'm going to get myself into a $600 car payment, and then I'm going to pay the insurance on it and all these extra costs. And I'm like, what's the point of doing that? Am I really going to come out net positive buying new? And I wasn't. And I think it's just, it also too, like the less you have those fixed expenses that you have to, like your rent, your car, insurance costs, things like that, things that do not change, like you're stuck with those expenses, the lower you can keep those within reason, obviously, unless it's something you have an abundance of cash for and you really value, it just gives you more freedom. Because, you know, God forbid, you're like, you know what? I want to move to New York City and I want to sell my car. Well, if you're upside down in that loan, good luck, honey. You know, like it stinks.
Yeah, it gives you more freedom. I think the same is true on the housing side. And I think for any of these big fixed expenses, the piece of advice that I would give to any young person listening to this podcast is just don't get a taste of what the other side looks like. For example, if you are in college and you're used to living with roommates and you're thinking about what you want to do for your first lease when you get your first full-time job, I would say continue living with roommates as long as you can, because once you taste living without roommates, it's going to be hard to downsize and go back to living with a bunch of people. You're going to get used to that quality of life. So keep living with roommates, keep driving the old car as long as possible, keep like prolonging those sort of like big expensive decisions as long as you can, because it's going to be really hard to go backwards. But with
Mm-hmm.
that, let's transition into some of like the discretionary spend stuff, because food was the other of like the big three. But I also think that food can be a big like discretionary spend item for a lot of people as well. And for this category, I feel like we want to talk about just overall how to feel more in control of your spending, because I think we've all had that feeling of like, I really want to start saving money, but it just feels like every single month there's something unexpected that comes up. I'm going to tell myself that I'm going to start saving money in September. But then in September, I randomly have a wedding or a birthday that I need to buy a gift for, or just something keeps coming up every single month and then you never end up spending money. I feel like I did that for like a year and a half until I really got it under control and started planning for some of that stuff. So overall, we just want to talk about like some of the things that could be impacting that feeling of I thought I was going to be able to save money this month, but now I get to the end of the month and I have nothing left over. And some of these might sound like a little bit intuitive, but then on the flip side, you might be like, oh, yep, that's me. The first one that we have on this list here is impulse spending in Target. So, like, going in for one thing and leaving with 10. And obviously, Target is like a big one here, but it could be any store. Just like going into a store for something and coming out with something that you didn't go in for. Another one that I think throws a lot of people off when they're young and in their 20s is Ubers and like Ubering home from the bars all the time. And then the third one, we have a big long list here, but Grace, you can talk through some of them too. The other one is paying $35 for like drop-in Pilates classes when you just like straight up can't afford them. That's one of those things where it's like, if you're not tracking your spending, you're like $35, who cares, whatever. And then you get to the end of the month and you're like, crap, I spent $300 on Pilates this month. Where did my money go?
I think too, like, well, I'll read the last ones on this list and then I have a note, but the next one is saying yes to going to concerts, traveling, etc. when you can't really afford that, which we kind of already talked about as well. Going out for a drink and ending up paying for a full dinner and 4 drinks, and impulse buying clothes online. And also I want to say impulse buying anything online, because especially with TikTok Shop and how so many people have their cards saved to things, it becomes so easy to just like buy something and check out. You have Amazon on your phone, and it's like, again, not to shame anybody, because like I have Amazon on my phone and I definitely have impulse bought things, but like it's become so easy to purchase things. I think with this discretionary spend section and really thinking through this, and I think this is part of the reason I think why a lot of people don't enjoy budgeting or why it intimidates them, is because it takes a sense of radical like honesty and radical self-responsibility. Like no one else is in your bank statements looking at what you've spent and what's on your credit card and like people are not in your head and signing on the dotted line making those financial decisions. It's you. And it can be very uncomfortable if you are overspending, or even if you are living like I was a few years ago, where you're like in that financial scarcity and you're like hating your life because you're not allowing yourself to spend on anything fun when you could afford to. You have to be the one to be honest with yourself. And that's very uncomfortable to look at it and be like, yeah, I went to Pilates 7 times and paid for these drop-in classes, and I spent more on Pilates than I saved, or I spent more on Pilates than I invested. Or yeah, I'm looking at what I spent on dining out with my friends, or what I spent at bars, and I realized I spent $500 on alcohol and Ubers this month. That doesn't make me feel good, right? Like, looking at these things doesn't always feel good. There's plenty of times I look at my budget where I'm like, yeah, like, I spent $50 on that, and like, I kind of wish I didn't. An example, just to put it all out there, make people feel less bad. I bought a dress from Abercrombie. I went in there to buy something else. I bought this dress kind of impulsively. I thought I could like fix the top. I thought I just needed to adjust the straps and it would look cuter. I brought it home, health flare, did not try it on again until weeks later. Go to put it on. I tried to adjust the straps. It doesn't look good. I spent like $50 on this dress. The dress, literally, I could not, no matter what I did with the straps, the top part just like was not flattering. And I thought that adjusting the straps would solve it. Now I have a dress, it's past the return date, and I spent $50 on it. Not a great purchase, right? I'm not looking at that in my budget and being like, yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm looking at it and being like, I need to be more intentional about what I'm spending on clothes when I'm shopping in store. And I can just like grab things and buy them or whatever. That's part of this. You have to be so honest with yourself about where your money is going. So I think when you're looking at these expenses and you're tracking it, asking yourself things like, where did I spend more than I anticipated? Like, go back in your budget and track some of these and look at it and just be honest with yourself. Like, where am I spending more than I thought that I did? What expenses am I regretting? Am I looking at anything and being like, they always say that question of, would you rather have the thing or the cash? So let's say you went out to dinner and you spent $50. Think to yourself, would I rather have that dinner again or $50? And if the answer is $50, maybe that dinner was not worth $50 to you. And that doesn't mean that you don't have to go to dinner ever again and you're like, okay, I'm cutting all my dining out. It just means, okay, maybe I don't go to that restaurant again where I know I'm going to end up spending more on dinner. Or maybe next time I go out, I just get dinner and not an appetizer and dinner, or whatever it may look like. And also, which ones are more than you thought? And are there any that you don't think were worth it in hindsight? That's something that I'll try to ask myself. Like, if I'm out, let's say at a store and I'm looking at something, I'll be like, what would I, before looking at the tag, I'm like, what would I buy this for? And if it's more than that, then I know that I don't value that item at the price that it is. So sometimes when I'm looking at my budget, I'll look at it and I'll be like, oh, wow, like for example, food is one, like grocery shopping, which my groceries are higher just because of my food allergies. Like, buying the allergen free options are just usually more. So I have to be flexible with myself there. But I'll look at it sometimes and I'll be like, I went to Walmart and spent $150 in 1 week. I'm like, whoa, okay, that's more than I thought. Why? Like, what am I buying that costs more? Oh, okay, like I bought organic honey and that's literally $5 more than regular honey. Do I value it at that much? No. Next time I'm just going to buy the regular one. Or, you know what? I bought like 3 vegetables and 2 of them went bad before I ate all of it. Next time I'm just going to buy frozen or whatever. And like, just making small tweaks to make I guess that's a necessary expense, not a discretionary one, but like making small tweaks to be able to align your values with your spending as well.
Yeah, I think paying attention to the totals for each category at the end of the month and then looking and being like, okay, if I spent more than I would have liked to on, let's say, shopping, like you just said, why is that? And kind of looking and being brutally honest with yourself about, why did I overspend in that category? And I feel like when I started tracking my spending, I realized that it all sort of rolls up to a couple of things. Like, there's a couple of root causes that are really important, and we want to talk about some of them and then give you some more like tips to stop doing that and be more in control with your discretionary spending. The big one for me, I think, was a lack of planning ahead. I found this a lot with my clothes shopping back in college. I think back in college was the point in time of my life where I was the worst with my spending and spent out of my means, and got to the end of the month and would be like sad that I spent as much as I did every single month. And lack of planning ahead was a really big one, especially with clothes, because I spent a lot of money on clothes back then. And that could look like, okay, you have a wedding coming up and you forgot to rent something on Fashion Pass, and now it's the day before, and now you either have to pay for rush shipping or you have to go in store and buy something for $150 at Abercrombie, or just something like that where you're paying for rush shipping, you're buying something because it's the day before a trip and you're panic shopping, and then you never end up making any returns because you feel like you don't have time, like whatever it may be, just kind of that lack of planning ahead is such a big one. That was like a big root cause for me. But then some other tips for being more in control with your spending. The first one, I think this is kind of big because we all want to spend money on social stuff, but sometimes it can get a little bit out of control. And I think scheduling out your social obligations in advance and also mapping out how much those are going to cost you can be really helpful. And it can also kind of tell you like when you need to slot in some social things more or less. So at the beginning of the month, go slot in like, okay, I know I have this event coming up in 2 weeks. I know I have dinner with a friend on Tuesday. Start slotting those in and then be like, oh crap, I already said yes to 3 relatively expensive dinners. The next time someone asks me to do something, maybe I should tell them no, or why don't you come over and we can hang out here, or let's go for a walk or something like that to save money. I think this is also important with the comment that you made about the concert ticket. Like if you already said yes to one concert this month and then someone asks you to go to a concert and you're like, well, I can already see in my calendar that I'm going to something and I spent money on that ticket, maybe I should sit out for this one. The second one is to make a to be bought list of items that you want to purchase. And I know we have talked about this on podcast episodes before, but practice like wanting things without actually buying them, especially with clothes. Like just because you see an influencer post an outfit doesn't mean you need to go run and buy it right this second. It's going to be there a month from now when you want it. So just make a little list in your phone of like things that you want and just practice wanting them and not actually acting on it. The other one, stop going to Target and TJ Maxx. And this can be kind of like a just stop shopping in person in general. Like, yes, online shopping can be very impulsive as well, but I also think it helps you map out your purchases better and you're not walking into a store and seeing a bunch of things that you didn't even know that you needed because you don't need them. The other one is order groceries online for free pickup. I know obviously groceries is not a discretionary spending category, but we are spending a lot of money on groceries every single month. And a lot of people do struggle with walking up and down the aisles and picking up a ton of things that they didn't go in there for. Taking care of the things that you have is such a big one. I know I struggled with this for a while, especially with clothing. Like if your clothes, it doesn't matter how expensive the t-shirt is, if it's thrown in the back of your closet, it's not going to look nice. It's going to look grungy, and then you're going to want to buy a new one. So just take care of it better. And then the last one, and this kind of segues us into the next section of the episode, is you need to track your spending. You need to track it. You need to know where your money's going. You need to be able to get to the end of the month and see if and how much you're overspending so that you can make adjustments for the next month. And in this next section, we're going to talk about how to build the habit of actually doing so.
A couple of very quick notes before we move into the next section is also on the topic of taking care of things you have. Two things I was thinking of. One is use up what you have before you buy new. It's funny because I'm not someone who buys like new makeup all of the time. I used to do makeup as like a hobby and I really loved it. And so I would want to try new things a lot, but it's not a hobby of mine anymore. If it is a hobby of yours, fine, right? That's your hobby of choice, whatever. But I used to do this where I would literally just, because my makeup was just, I wouldn't use up what I had before I bought something new. I would just like be like, oh, I want to buy this new blush and I want to buy this new whatever. And 9 times out of 10, the new product was not like a miraculous, like
A
game
new blush
changer
shade's
of,
not going to make you
right.
prettier.
Yeah. Like it's like if it's like, okay, we're going into fall, I want to buy like a less summery shade and a more muted fall shade. Fine. You know what I mean? That's fine. But no one needs like 37 lipstick shades and 16 blushes. Like it just does not make sense. And I found actually so much more peace in using what I have before I buy something new, because also too, like it's just like satisfying to know that what you paid for you're actually using, and it's helped with organization, which is the other point I wanted to make. Is like I think sometimes people buy things, myself included, because we don't know what we already have, and this happens just because we're not organized with our stuff. This is a very simple example, but a couple of months ago, I went to the store. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm out of hand soap. I need to buy hand soap. And I use ones that are like a little less fragranced because of my health stuff. And so they're more expensive, like $5 a soap. So I bought a few soaps, got home, and then I like was going to put some away under the sink, and I found them like under the sink, just like hidden. But because my under my sink was not organized, I didn't know that I had that. I bought a shampoo or conditioner a few months ago. I don't remember what it was, and then looked under my cabinet and come to find out I had one. It was just like, again, hidden. So like be organized with what you have. And I think people do this also with clothes. There's something way at the back of your closet. You buy something and then you're like, oh, I kind of had a piece that was similar to this and I didn't need to buy something. And a solution that I'm exploring with that and with just changing my style is having a virtual closet. It takes some time, but you can just get a free virtual closet app. You upload photos of everything you have, and then you have an inventory right there. So if you're at the store and you see something, you can just be like, oh, I already have something like this. I don't need this pair of jeans. This pair of jeans is not going to make my butt look so revolutionary that I don't need my other 8 pairs of jeans. Like I have 8 at home. I am fine. And I think that helps with preventing some of the excess spending as well. Also, too, on the grocery topic, I used to do grocery delivery. I need to get back into doing it because I would spend like maybe $90 a week. I'm spending like 140 a week, 130 a week. I mean, I am buying more household items recently. Just I've run out of a bunch of the stuff that I bought a couple months ago, but it's like adding up so much, and I'm going over in my grocery category so
Yeah,
much,
and
and
grocery
I
pickup
spent
is
less.
free. It's
Yes.
literally free to pick it
Yeah.
up. I mean, delivery is going to cost you some money, but grocery pickup at Aldi or Walmart or whatever, it's literally free. I
Yeah.
spend way less money when I do that. And I don't forget things, because if I forget stuff, then I have to run back to the store and then I end up
Hmm.
spending another $50 at the store.
And I can see like what is in my pantry and kitchen right then and there. So, okay, we have been yapping for so long. We want to get into this next section so we can dive into actually how to actually track your spending, like the tactical step by step of tracking your spending, because we can talk about it all day, but we're big on taking action on this podcast. So, step one of all of this is you just have to have something to track your spending. And we are both Google Sheet girlies, Excel sheet girlies. We both Excel our own budget templates, as many of you know, but we know that's not everyone's jam. Some people much prefer an app. Whatever it is, you need to just find something that you are going to stick to. I will say, I personally think an Excel sheet or a template, like a Google Sheet template of some sort, is extremely beneficial because you're forced to copy over all of your expenses from your credit card or bank statement into your Google Sheet. And that forces you to look critically at every single expense. There will be expenses you look at that you're like, I don't remember what that is. This happened to me the other day. I spent $54 at a restaurant, and I thought, what? I was like, what was I doing there? And I realized once I thought about it, I had gone to dinner with my friend and I just like forgot. I thought the plans were in July, but they were like on August 1st or 2nd. And so I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, like $54 was like I probably could have spent less. Like I didn't need to, it was like a gluten-free restaurant. So I was like really hyped. And like ordered a bunch. But I was like, okay, if I can't remember what that is, like, was it a worthwhile spend? And in this case, it was, once I came to and like realized what the expense was. But if you're copying them all over, you may realize that some of them are not worth it. And that's a good way to look at your spending under a critical lens.
Yeah, I think I've definitely tried budgeting apps like back in college when I was trying to get my money under control. I've tried a couple of different budgeting apps, but they never stuck for that reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I mean, it allows you to. You can spend all day in your budgeting app looking at all of your transactions, but you're probably just going to skim through them, or a lot of them will like sum up the category total. And it's kind of nuanced to actually go in and look at all of the transactions. So you're just kind of like looking at it at a glance, and you're not really combing through it and seeing what the individual transactions are. So it doesn't give you that same accountability as if you are literally tracking line by line. Like it takes probably 10 seconds to track one line item in my transactions log, which sounds like a lot, but honestly, I spend like 10 minutes a week doing this. Like it is pretty quick, but that 10 seconds is forcing your brain to slow down and be like, what am I writing right now? Like, what subscription are we talking about? Have you used this month? Like, it just gives you time to think about every single thing. And if you're sitting here saying, like, I don't know if that sounds sustainable for me, I think just know, like, it doesn't have to be a forever thing, but I do think it's good at the beginning. I think if you're in a situation, which you probably are if you've been listening to us talk about budgeting for the last 49 minutes at this point, like you probably are in this situation where you've never done this before and you've never looked at your transactions or have spent a lot of time with them. I think it's really beneficial for that point in time, especially because that's going to give you the biggest value. Honestly, Grace and I are at a point where we probably could stop tracking manually, and we probably could use some type of app to just look at things high level, make sure everything's good, make sure we're not like going crazy with anything, because we've been doing it for 5 or 6 years at this point. But especially at the beginning, it's really important to be like, oh, yep, I do have $200 worth of subscriptions. Have I used any of those this month? No. Like, or just little things like that. And then we want to talk too about how to actually build the habit of doing it, because that's the other question we get asked all the time is like, I try to start tracking my spending, but then I fall off. I'm not consistent with it. And to that, I just say, like, it's literally a habit, just like anything else. And building a habit is hard. It takes time. It's not going to be like first nature or second nature.
Second nature.
Second
Yeah.
nature. It's not going to be second nature at the beginning because we've never done it before, but do it consistently for 3 or 4 months, and then it's going to be a habit. It's going to be a every Sunday night I sit down and I pull up my credit card and I track all of my spending for that week. It's going to be something that you remember to do, but you have to give it like 3 or 4 months of doing it consistently before you decide that it's not for you.
I think, like you're saying, you're not, the odds of you being 100% consistent in the beginning is slim. I think, I forget what the like quote is, but it basically was talking about how what matters is how quickly you choose to rebound and like get back to what you're supposed to be doing. I think it was a quote about resilience. Like, resilience is not like what happens, but how quickly you get back or like come back to neutral. And I think that's so true with habits too, is like, because I think people get so focused on being as disciplined as they see someone else being. And it's like, you have to be realistic about what your discipline level is around that habit at this moment in time. Like, yes, there's someone like Erin who sits down every single Monday morning and does this or whatever and is super disciplined about it. Or like, you wake up early every single morning and like, you're very disciplined about that. And like, that's realistic for you because it's a habit that you've built over time. But for someone who's new to it, for example, like I'm trying to get in the habit of waking up earlier in the morning. Am I going to be up at 5:30 every single morning? No. Am I going to shame myself for the mornings that I sleep until 7:30? No. Like, because that's not conducive to building a habit. It's not helpful. And it's going to take time to build it into a habit the same way that tracking your spending is. But with that, when you have weeks where you're like, oh, I didn't track, you have to get yourself back on track. There's plenty of weeks where I don't track, where I go 2 weeks in between or whatever. But it's okay. Then I'm going to recognize that I went off and I need to get myself back on track. And we've talked about the 1 year experiment that I've done a bunch of times in the podcast. You can like go back and listen to the episodes on it. But a lot of people have really resonated with that structure because it takes pressure off, because it's not like, oh, I missed a week, I failed, or I missed a day, I failed. And so to that, I say, when it comes to tracking your spending, treat it like an experiment if that helps you. Like, okay, for the next 4 weeks, I'm committing to sitting down every Monday morning for 15 minutes. Or if your Monday mornings are crazy, pick another time, Monday evenings, Sunday mornings, whenever you 100% have time available, like without fail. Okay, so every Sunday morning when I sit there and drink my coffee, I'm going to track my spending for the next 4 weeks or the next 8 weeks. I'm treating it like an experiment. And at the end, I'm going to just see what happens, see if I feel better. And if I do and I like it, I'll keep moving forward with it. And if I don't, I'll pick another way to go about this.
I also will say that we've heard from a lot of people that they say, well, I don't want to know. I don't want to know because it's really anxiety inducing or it's going to stress me out. So I'm avoiding it, which like we do that with a lot of things, right? We avoid things because they're going to stress us out, but then they end up like taxes I've put off and now they're stressing me out even more because it's 3 months late. But you know what I mean? Like things do stress you out, but when you start to get on top of things, then they stop stressing you out and the habit avoids the stress. So you have to like get over that hump of being like, yeah, for the first 4 to 8 weeks of me doing this consistently, this is going to stress me out and I'm going to look at things and it's going to make me uncomfortable. I might see that I'm spending more than I'm earning and I'm going to have to figure that out. But the more you do it, once you start doing it for 3, 4, 6 months, then it's going to get to a point where it's like, I'm doing this to avoid being stressed out. And I'm doing this so that I'm really on top of my spending. And I also will say too, like thinking back to the point in time where I had to build this habit from scratch, it's a lot easier to build the habit when you're very, very motivated by your financial goals. So I started tracking my spending in college. And this was the point in time where I got super interested in saving money. And I was listening to a lot of podcasts on people who were investing in real estate. And I thought I wanted to buy a rental property. And I was like, let me save a bunch of money in college so that when I graduate, maybe I could buy a rental rental property or buy a house or whatever it may be. So I was really, really motivated by that, by my financial goals. And I tell you, at this time, I had my budget tracker up on my computer every single day. Like I went in there every single time I spent money. It was the first thing that I did. I logged it into my budget tracker, and it just got me really excited. And now I definitely don't do it every day. Like I do it once a week. Some weeks I definitely miss as well. But back then, when I was building that habit, I needed to find something that I was really excited about, and my financial goals were that. So I think that can also help too. Like, don't frame it as something negative, something you have to do. At that time, I was like, this is cool. Like, the less that I spend, the more I get to save, the more I get to invest. Like, I love watching my bank account grow, like, turn it into a positive, and that can really help as well.
I also want to add too, and this might be a bit of a hot take or sound harsh, but y'all know me, you know my heart, said with love. Okay, financial ignorance is not bliss, nor is it cute, especially as a woman. And I say that for a few reasons. One, what was it, just like 50 years ago or something, women had the ability to get a credit card without a man's permission. I will be damned if I don't know what is going on with my credit card. Or like, I made a video recently about, I live alone. I have the privilege of paying for this apartment by myself as a woman. That is not an opportunity that women have always had. And to be able to make those decisions, not because you have to, but to even just have the option and the ability to have a bank account on your own, have a credit card on your own, have an apartment, being able to pay rent, being able to take out a loan on your own, to not know what's going on with those things is not cute. And I think that when I understand that being ignorant to it is safer because you don't have to face the reality of it if you don't like the reality of whatever your financial situation looks like. However, I think it creates a slippery slope to being in a worse position because then you don't know. So you're like, okay, I don't know where my money is going. And now all of a sudden, God forbid something happens and you don't have an emergency fund, or you have no control over your spending, or you're in an apartment that is like well beyond your means, or in a car loan that's well beyond your means. And now you're trying to pick up the pieces and find out this puzzle. And I say this so kindly. I see this a lot with people who are married and do not manage their money at all. Like they have no idea what's going on and they let their partner make all the financial decisions. And I think that that is just such a slippery slope to bad things happening, to potential financial abuse, to, you know what I mean? Like there's so much that goes on. And I think that as women, we need to not be ignorant to it. Like I think we have a responsibility to ourselves and to all the women that have come before us that have worked so hard for us to be in the position that we are able to be in with our money, to be able to make decisions on our own and have agency when it comes to our financial decisions. I think that we should be privy to it. We should be informed, and it should start with our own finances and actually looking at what is going on with our own finances. I think to me, that makes me feel more empowered. I'm like, my grandma probably could not have lived on her own because she probably would have needed a man's permission to be able to sign here. Yeah, to get an apartment. So like I'm going to understand what my rent is. I'm going to run the numbers in my budget. I'm going to think through it. When it comes to my credit card, I'm like, yeah, 50 years ago, like my mom couldn't have a credit card at that point. My grandma couldn't have a credit card. So I'm like, I'm going to really pay attention to that. I'm going to look at where my money is going because I think that's part of my responsibility. And I will say, once you get over that, okay, ignorance is not bliss and I should be informed and it is scary and I don't want to know, but I'm going to face it anyways. Once you actually start to then become more in control of your finances, it is the most empowering thing. Like, having the knowing, like for example, I paid off $70,000 of student loan debt in like 3 years after I graduated college. I'm so proud of that because I made every single payment on that loan intentionally. Like I was like, I am paying attention to my spending and tracking it and making those payments. That's like the best feeling, to be like, I'm debt free because I did that. Or like I'm going on this vacation because I budgeted and I saved for it. Like, you enjoy those things so much more and it's empowering. Get yourself over that hump of fear. Don't be ignorant to it, And then literally on the other side of it is like a lot more excitement and empowerment and joy.
I totally agree with everything that you just said. And I also will say that if you are listening to that specifically and you're saying, okay, yeah, that's great, but I don't have the financial literacy to be able to do that, because I think the financial world tries to make everything sound more complicated than it is. Like there's a lot of jargon. I think a lot of like people posting on the internet try to make it seem like it's something that's like it's not confusing. It's very straightforward. There might be a couple little terms that you need to like understand and get over that little hump. But we talked about Ramit Sethi earlier on in this episode. And that was actually the first financial book that I read back in college when I wanted to start understanding money. His book is called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And it's just a really good, like, financial fundamentals, your financial foundation. It covers literally everything you need to know for the basics. So if you listen to that and you're like, yeah, that's great, but I feel like I don't understand all the pieces that go into my personal finances, I would definitely say read that book because it is just a good like high level overview of everything that you need to know. And then after that, you are totally equipped to manage your money. You're totally equipped to start budgeting, start tracking your spending, start saving and investing money. The last thing we wanted to cover here was like when you have money left over, what do you do with it? But I honestly think that a lot of people know. I think they know like, hey, I want to get married in 2 years and I need to start saving money for a wedding, or my car is probably going to crash out in the next 3 years. And I probably should have money for the down payment or for the whole thing if my goal is to pay for it in cash or whatever it may be. I do think people know those things, but it's kind of the intimidation of like, how do I get to a point where I have money left over to be able to save and invest or pay off my debt, pay off $70,000 worth of student loans, all of those things. So I hope that's encouraging. And I hope this episode in general was encouraging for you guys to just, yeah, pick through the pieces of your budget and say, what's the root cause of my overspending? If there is any overspending in my budget, how do I piece together my budget to make sure it's effective and balanced and something that I actually look forward to sticking to every single month? But I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. I think we can cut it here because we've yapped for a really long time. But if you like this episode, if you do want to see us like incorporating a lot more money content back into the podcast, definitely let us know in Spotify because we actually haven't done a money episode in so long. And I feel like this was a really good one. But with that, thanks for tuning into the podcast. And until next week.